all right. This is Jelani Asar with the Unfunded Liabilities Monster. And right now we have an interview with Mike Gearhardt. And Mike has over 30 years of experience in accounting. He's a former chief financial officer of a publicly traded government service provider, and his responsibilities while in this position gave him an inside view of government financial operations. And I'm sure that was not a pretty sight to see. Mike is also a partner in Arate Group, Incorporated, and it is an executive research and talent acquisition firm for businesses. Mike is also the author of The Financial Tsunami, Will It Drown Us in a Wave of Debt? So, Mike, how you doing?
Great. How are you doing today?
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So, first of all, let's get into your inside view into government financial operations. And based on your experience as an accountant, your deep experience as an accountant, what was that like? And what were you thinking as you saw what was going on behind the scenes?
Well, there's a lot of moving parts to the government budget, as you know, and I spent a lot of time tracking those moving parts. And, it was sort of amazing. The government fiscal year starts October 1st and ends in September. And as a government contractor, you get towards the end of the year, all of a sudden you start getting a lot of awards because the government feels they've got to spend that money because it's been allocated. And there's a mentality like, gosh, if we don't spend it, we'll lose it, so we'll spend it. So, I'd say that there's always a push to spend money versus do the financial analysis and justification as to is it a good investment for the American taxpayer.
And does it typically go in the right place? Would you say?
That's a relative thing, but I can tell you that about 82 cents of every dollar that the government spends is on interest, defense, and entitlement programs. Mm-hmm. And out of that 82 cents, we get about 54 to 55 cents of it that are going to the entitlement program. So, it's easy to track where the money's going, and people talk about, we got to start cutting the waste and abuse, and while those things are interesting, and I agree with them wholeheartedly, mm-hmm. You have to remember that on the discretionary spending, the second largest item is health and human services, and that budget's about an $80 billion a year budget. Mm-hmm. So, once you get past the defense spending, which is $680 billion a year, the next largest item is about 80. So it gets increasingly hard to manage those numbers as you fall away from the big ticket items.
Do you think that perhaps the solution would be to lessen the budget and lessen the amount of money that the government has available to spend?
Well, I think the solution, quite honestly, is a balanced budget amendment. Forcing the politicians to live within their means and not continually run this country as a deficit. The last time the government had a positive budget was 1969. Mm-hmm. Now, to give President Clinton his due, he did get within $18 billion of having a balanced budget. But the fact is, since 1969, we've been running at a deficit. We've been ignoring it, and we've been choosing to kick the can down the road. And as you know, the current numbers are so large, right, at $14.3 trillion, and that's what we know about, by the way. There's a whole lot more that we don't know about, but at $14.3 trillion, we can ill afford to keep kicking this can down the road. Right.
And when you say there's a whole lot more that we don't know about, what exactly are you speaking about?
Well, the government basically is on a cash basis. So they sort of look at what they need to spend this year, and they put together a budget and account for it. What they don't have is the unfunded liabilities that have amassed out there on a balance sheet. And that number is actually quite staggering. In addition to the $14.3 trillion we know about, There's a gentleman by the name of Richard Fisher who is the president of the Dallas Fed, and he did a study, and he estimated that the unfunded liabilities for the United States of America could be as high as $100 trillion over the next 75 years.
Huh. And that was in, if I remember correctly, that was in 2008 that he made that statement.
Yeah, it was a 2008, 2009 study that he did, and the guy is, a very, very bright guy, and for him to come out there and with that study and go public with it was,
right.
I'm sure quite a shock to a lot of people. But
right.
the fact of the matter is, I think the guy is pretty much spot on, and frankly, I really don't care if it's 80 trillion or 100 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
It is a huge tipping point that we're going to have to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me see if I understand this correctly. Are you saying that the government doesn't really look at the unfunded liabilities when it's managing its finances and planning out its spending?
I'm saying they're aware of it. I'm not saying
aware of it.
They certainly are aware of it. What they don't do is really look forward and saying, okay, we've got X dollars that we're going to spend in the future, so we need to start cutting.
I see.
They have a propensity to spend more than they take in, as we have discussed. And as a result of that, these mounting liabilities, and most of them are the result of the entitlement programs, those being the Social Security and the Medicare programs that are in place, and the aging of the baby boom population. And as more and more people go into those programs, the spend on them, continues to escalate.
Mm-hmm.
And over the last 30 years, we've seen that go from under 4% of GDP to slightly over 8% of GDP. So those numbers have doubled, and they're on target to double again over the next 30 years. So quite a looming problem, as the government moves forward, to the year 2020, 2030.